Hey guys, hey, welcome to another episode of the Film Life Vlog and the Film Life Podcast. I'm so glad you guys joined me. Hey, today I want to talk about my journey into shooting with film cameras and what really brought me to this point. What is it about film that has sort of stuck with me as my go-to hobby for relaxation and whenever I feel like I need a break or I need some time to myself, I tend to go down to my film cameras and just play with my film cameras. And it's been a source of great joy to me. If I can recall, it was 2018, actually no, it was 2017. 2017, I was going through a really tough period in my life. I was having some difficulty at work, my former job, and it was a very stressful job. I was in a leadership position. It was a very stressful job, and I needed an outlet. I needed something to keep me distracted. Something to do while I was at home, because every time you're going through something, if you don't get yourself busy, you're gonna probably start thinking about all your problems and it will just weigh down on you. And I'm so glad that I found film photography. It got to a point where my music wasn't cutting it. You know, I do music, I'm a musician, I write music, I have produced a few albums. But it got to a point where it wasn't helping because when it comes to music, you need that inspiration, right? I find that for me personally, I write best when I'm happy. I write also when I'm going through stuff. But when you're in a state of confusion and anxiety, it's not the best space to be creative. Yeah, so it got to a point where I needed some outlet, and film photography was that outlet that I found. It was convenient because I could just take a camera, play with the camera whenever I wanted, just to gain that time to get filled up again. Film photography provided that outlet for me, so I could bounce between my two hobbies. That period was really tough, and I credit film photography for giving me a distraction to be able to go through that period. Now, fast forward to now, I'm in a much better place, obviously. I work with really nice people and I'm in a much better space. But now that I'm here, I cannot go back. I find that film photography has become not so much a fad for me, it's become like a way of life for me. I just it's become part of me. I became so obsessed with film. I decided not to just focus on just shooting film, but also to collect. And for me personally, I guess I was susceptible to collecting film cameras. And that's why I ended up with such a huge collection of film cameras. I was always into retro things, into old stuff that really I find that really attractive to me. And film photography, once I got into it, I decided, I'm just gonna start collecting these beautiful cameras. And it's been such a wonderful hobby, collecting these cameras. I also wanted to learn how to develop film myself, and I did. I learned how to develop color film first, and then black and white film. And that saved me a ton of money, guys, a ton of money. As a matter of fact, all of last year, 2020, every single film that I developed was from that one kit that I bought for about 60 Canadian dollars. So if you think about it, I used one developing kit to develop, I would say, over 50 rolls of film, and it's really incredible. And it's gotten to a place where I'm actually able to tell when the solutions are getting a bit weak, and all I do is just extend the time for the development time, and it works. It actually works. So it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful developing film. And when the opportunity came for me to acquire an enlarger, I certainly ran to it and I picked one up, and then I started printing film in the darkroom as well. So that became another dimension of this hobby. And once I started doing that, oh my gosh, I was really sold. I was sold. It's been so much fun, such a fun journey. But one thing for me that I would caution you, if you want to get into film or you are already into film, is do it for you. You know, do it for you. Do not allow others to set the expectations for you, because the reason why I got into film may be different from your reason for getting into film. But for me personally, it has, because I focused on my needs and that void that I was hoping to fill, I have stayed true to that. As a matter of fact, I never intended to do any videos or I never intended to share any of my love or my passion with anybody. This was something I did for myself. It was just one day I happened to be working on a camera, and my wife just came by and she said, "Hey, you seem very passionate about this thing. You're always playing with these cameras. Why don't you set up a YouTube page and share it with people? There are people who may be interested." And she was right, because in this channel I have found similar-minded folks like you. I have found people that are interested to listen to this guy, you know, play with cameras and share experiences, and it's been a fun ride. So my advice to you going forward for you guys is, you know, don't do it for anybody. Just because in photography, especially in digital photography, there is a lot of it's almost like a rat race, you know, where people want to show off the latest gear. People divide into camps, Sony versus Nikon or Nikon versus Canon. And I find it so pointless, you know, because for me as a film photographer and as a collector, my goodness, I love all of them, you know, and I can see the beauty in all of them. But one thing I would advise you guys not to do is don't seek validation from somebody else. Don't seek validation from others. Always do it for yourself. If you're into film or you want to even experiment with film, find that thing that you're looking for. If you're just in this just to experiment, there's nothing wrong with it. That's what you're in it for. You just want to experiment. You have a little bit of time, buy a point and shoot camera. Why not? Just experiment and be happy with that. If you're in this and it's something that you really want to get into, like I wanted to, then you can go deeper. And even then, you don't have to go as deep as I went. And do not feel guilty if you're not able to go all in. There's nothing wrong with you shooting digital, and there's nothing wrong with you shooting both. So my advice to you is just do it for you and be happy, because you're being happy. You're feeling something inside you. And so now I'm going to talk about some of the benefits that I have found in film. Some I found along the way and some I knew right from the onset. And the number one thing that attracted me to film was certainly the cameras. My first memory of a film camera, was when I was a kid. I think I was about 7 or 8 years old, and my sister's husband is Russian. At that time, he was like, they had just returned from Russia, and I saw this old camera, this heavy, big old camera. That was my first impression of a camera up close. And I remember picking up the camera and looking at it and just being so fascinated with that camera. And my second encounter with a film camera was back in Ghana, because I came from Ghana in West Africa, and I came to Canada in 2000. I think this was in 1995 or 96. I've told this story before, and I was just enrolled into a national service program in Ghana, where after high school, we all have to be in some form of national service for 1 year. I was posted to my mother's hometown, which is a place called Mampong. It's on the mountainous area, and I wasn't earning a lot. I was probably earning like maybe like $50 or maybe like $100 a month. In the Ghanaian economy back then, about that amount would be close to what would be close to being paid, like maybe like $250 a month. It wasn't a lot. It was just a stipend, you know. But even though I wasn't earning a lot, the first thing that came to my mind when I got that kind of money, because I had never gotten that kind of money before. I grew up in a poor family. The first thing that came to my mind was buying music cassettes. So I bought cassettes of Christian music, because that's something that I really loved back then, and I still do. I bought Christian music cassettes, and then I also bought a film camera, and that was my Yashica camera, which I have talked about in the past. And this camera was one that I took photos of my days in university, all the friends that I had. And this was especially significant to me because growing up, I really don't have a lot of photos because my parents were so poor. I think I have maybe like 4 or 5 photos of my entire childhood. And that's pretty pathetic when you think about it. You know, so I guess I was overcompensating, and I can also say that ever since I have been overcompensating. But I love it, you know, because I grew up poor. I didn't have photos to show for my childhood. But once I grew up, I don't want that to happen to my kids. So I guess I'm overcompensating. And I also value images and the fact that when you're shooting with film, it lasts for pretty much for a long time, for a lifetime. When you shoot with film, you not only end up with the negatives, which is a physical format, but you can also print in the darkroom, or you can scan and get the digital copies as well. So it's that whole versatility of formats. Whereas you shoot with digital, you just end up with digital images. And the fact is, most of us do not print our digital images. Most of us don't. But when you shoot with film, you're forced to have a physical format, which is the negatives, number one. And then you can also go further and print. I find that I've printed more film photos than I ever printed of my digital photos. So that would be the major one for me. And that's what really attracted me to film. I wanted the memories. Once I became a parent and I realized my kids were growing up, I do not want these memories to be lost. And to be honest with you, I've lost quite a few digital images because either my hard drive crashed or a computer crashed. It happens, guys, it happens. And shooting with film allows you to have those memories stored somewhere in a physical format, and they last for a long time. I mean, think about it. If you are storing your family's images on a web server somewhere, or on a web platform somewhere, you're putting a lot of trust in these companies, because what you know now is the moment these companies suffer a loss, they just go bankrupt or they discontinue the services. I mean, think of Google, think of Microsoft, think of all the different services that have come and gone and just disappeared. Even think about your emails. Every now and then they want to take back some of the storage they're giving you, or they're telling you, if you don't use this email, we're gonna discontinue it, things like that. You know, it happens, and I cannot trust digital technologies, but I can trust film. I can trust that the images that I shoot with my film camera are stored in a safe place, and that makes film so special to me. The other big thing about film that I love so much is the aesthetics of film. I just love the aesthetics of film. Film photos are not as sharp as these modern digital images, but sharpness is not everything, guys. Sharpness is so overrated. Film photos have this aesthetic called the film look that I really love. It's that soft, almost more natural look of things. Everything looks a bit more natural, especially when you're shooting with really nice cameras and on really good stock. And in film photography, the other aspect is that it just allows you to be able to be in control. It's this whole concept of less is more. The less you have, the more you are able to actually grow when it comes to film cameras. I mean, imagine shooting with a camera like this. This camera here is manual, and you are forced to actually learn about the interplay between aperture and ISO and shutter speeds. And that is what makes you a better photographer, because once you're restricted, once you don't have the camera making all those adjustments for you, all kinds of auto modes, it allows you to actually learn to shoot better and to know how these factors interplay with each other. And in film cameras, you also get to see features like auto exposure lock, for example, and how that is implemented in such a rudimentary and basic way. It's so clear to you that you will be able to understand what that concept is about. Whereas in a digital camera, that will be mixed up with a whole bunch of other features, and it's so difficult to isolate those features or see them at play. With a film camera, you can actually see those things right at play. It isolates that feature for you so you can see it at play, and that helps the learning process. And another thing about film cameras that most would ignore is actually one that can be considered to be a demerit or a disadvantage of shooting with film, and that is the fact that you don't have that instant feedback. When you shoot with film, you have to wait to develop your film. You don't know how your image is going to turn out. But that is actually a good thing, for me at least, because I know that when I was shooting with digital, because I had that instant feedback and because it was so convenient to shoot, I would end up just shooting so much, and it's like eating junk food. It may taste good, but it's not good for you. And it's a similar concept when you're shooting less and you can't actually see the images that you're shooting. When you do develop your images and you have them in your hand, it just feels richer and it just feels more fulfilling. It's the fact that I can't see it. I can't see the images. It creates that anticipation in me. It just creates that excitement in me. And whenever I develop my film and then I see the images, sometimes I develop my film maybe 20 days, maybe a couple months later after I shot the images, for some even a year or two even, because I have so many cameras. And then when I see the image, ooh, that's what I was doing. Oh, look, this is our vacation. And then I can relive the whole thing again just by looking at the images for the first time. After a while, it is amazing. But anyways, those are the things that I find to be fascinating about film. You know, it's a lot more involving of you. It takes a lot more of you. It allows you to be creative. It just gives you a lot of room to be creative, either with double exposures or shooting even with expired film. For me, it also provides me an opportunity to explore thrift stores and antique stores and those are whole adventures by themselves, you know, to be able to store my images and have them lasting longer, knowing that my images, I have backup of my images. So this is how I got into film, and these are the reasons why I continue to shoot film. I'm sure you have your own reasons for shooting film, so why don't you share that with me in the comment section. Hey, thanks so much for joining me on this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And as always, guys, stay safe.